Thank you, Sam. Another sobering presentation that reminds us why our work at WVU Cyber is so urgently needed. That brings us to our next discussion, which could not be more timely. Our next panel will focus on how we prepare for, withstand, and recover from cyber disruptions that threaten these essential systems. But before we begin, I am excited to announce another new important partnership. West Virginia University is proud to announce that we have entered into a strategic partnership agreement with the Technology Advancement Center. TAC provides national security, innovation, engineering, and defense technology development and serves as an intermediary for United States Cyber Command, the National Security Agency, the Department of Homeland Security, and many others to advance the nation's cyber defense capabilities. Together, we will work on national security projects and applied research, hands-on learning, and collaborations with government and industry to strengthen our state's role in national security. In addition, this spring we will be launching TAC's world-class OT Bootcamp as an online course here at WVU, with many more to follow. Located at the steps of Fort Meade, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C., TAC's amazing 75,000 square foot tech center will also serve as a satellite location for WVU faculty, students, and industry partners. Accepting a statue of our beloved mountaineer to mark this important partnership is Chris Hollifield, CEO of the Technology Advancement Center. Please join me in giving Chris and the TAC a round of applause. But wait, there's more. The Institute for Critical Infrastructure Technology is the nation's foremost leading think tank when it comes to cybersecurity and policy for all things critical infrastructure. From the White House to the Congress, from the C-suites of the Fortune 500 to nearly every department in the U.S. government, ICIT is the first call made when they seek advice, policy development, research, and so much more. We are incredibly proud to announce an agreement that makes West Virginia University the first ever formal academic partner of ICIT. This partnership, under the leadership of their CEO, Cory Simpson, will allow WVU to participate directly in the national conversation that shapes national and international policy in the defense of our nation's critical infrastructure. Please join me in a round of applause for their CEO, Cory Simpson. For anyone else from business or government that is in the room, that has room on your mantle for a Mountaineer statue of your own, please give me a call. Or you can find me at the networking reception afterwards, likely camped out right beside the bar. So, moving on, joining Cory and Chris are two other distinguished panelists. From the world-renowned critical infrastructure intelligence and defense firm Dragos, Mr. Chuck Weisenborn, and moderating this important discussion is Associate Professor at WVU and Executive Director for the CRRC, Chris Ramezan. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our next panel, Bracing for Breakdown, Building Cyber Resilience into Critical Infrastructure.
All right, can everybody hear me? Excellent. Thank you so much to our esteemed panelists. It's a privilege and an honor to be with you all today. Bill, I'm going to take you up on that phone call. Chuck and I feel left out, so we need to go get a statue. Again, thanks everybody for joining us today here at this inaugural Cyber Summit. Cory, I want to start with you. First, I want to thank you for your partnership from ICIT to West Virginia University. We have seen an abundance of cyber attacks, as we've seen from our friends from Palo Alto, against critical infrastructure. So could you describe a little bit more about what ICIT does in the policy space and how they're helping secure our nation's critical infrastructure?
Thank you, Chris. It's great to be here and great to be with everyone. Bill, thank you for this opportunity. To West Virginia University, I'm a proud WVU grad, and it's good to be home. I'm also grew up here, grew up in Charleston, so West Virginia is home to me, and I'm very proud to be able to be here to represent the Institute and to carry out this partnership. Impact, which is the question, is really why it's an INS for ICIT. It's why we exist, is to create impact, and to create it for the benefit of critical infrastructure and for the benefit of largely the DC policymaking apparatus, which is a tough space to create impact. I'll just tell you sort of how we get to achieve those ends. It's important to understand a little bit about the Institute. So we're 60,000 members nationwide, and we are dedicated to the mission of focusing on critical infrastructure that provides for foundational need, modernizing it, securing it, and making it resilient. What does that mean, though? We keep people at the center of everything we do. Oftentimes when we talk about critical infrastructure, it's very easy for it to become about a bunch of complex systems and things. When we define critical, we believe it's critical because it's critical to human beings. And we look specifically at 3 buckets. For those of you that are aware of the national breakdown of 16 critical infrastructure sectors, it's technically 4, but we do it in sort of 3 pillars. One is water and wastewater. The second is energy, and the third is transportation and telecoms. We keep transportation and telecoms together, TNT, because of that explosive impact. Or dad joke, couldn't help it. But I would say, think about when something happens, goes wrong, you have to be able to transport signal, data. You have to make a phone call and ask for help. The person receiving that call has to be able to transport physical assistance to you or get you out of a bad situation. So that's why we put TNT together, or transportation and telecoms. We achieve sort of impact by focusing on initiatives, and 4 initiatives that we have running into calendar year 26 that we're looking very, very much forward to being a part of WVU in these is one, the Center for the Federal Civilian Executive Branch, Resilience. I'm gonna bet if I ask for a number of hands, what is the FCB or FCIB, the Federal Civilian Executive Branch? Not many folks would know. I've served 23 years in government, most of those in the military. And when I didn't know what it was, but it's responsible for 15 of the 16 critical infrastructure sectors. It's 102 departments and agencies that has a very diffuse congressional oversight. It provides everything from the federal government that the American people rely on from critical infrastructure. Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, VA, small business, SNAP, all of that is in the Federal Civilian Executive Branch. Energy, water, transportation, telecoms. That's why ICIT is focused on that element of the federal government. And then we're also standing up a National Security Drone Alliance. I don't think our nation, our country, is ready for the threats that UAS, counter UAS, like we have just not matured that conversation. And when you look globally, you look at the battlefields of Europe, the battlefields of the Middle East, we need to get ready for this. And so we've kicked off an initiative. We're partnering with industry on that, and we'll be working with West Virginia University on that. And then I want everybody to think about water, wastewater, energy. How do those things, telecoms, come together in a way that impacts national security right now? We just, I think 2 weeks ago, there was one of the top stories in the New York Times. We plan to spend $7 trillion in the next 2 years on data centers. That's pulling water, energy, large amounts of data together in specific places. It's going to have impacts on communities. And so when ICIT talks about AI and we talk about data centers, we are talking about them together Because too oftentimes, I think we're thinking about AI and the applications of it, but not how it's being built and the impacts that it's going to have on our communities. And then lastly, we have an initiative on defense of critical infrastructure. We partner with the Department of Defense on this, and really looking at military enclaves. You can do unique things within, say, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where I've spent a good portion of my career. It brings $8 billion a year into the North Carolina economy. It's vital. It's also tied into the grid. It's tied into the water systems, the telcos. And so, what does that do to those systems around it? It makes them targets. And so thinking about ways to minimize that is something we're actively working with the Department of Defense. I've talked enough. I'll turn it back to you, Chris.
Thanks so much, Cory. Again, that's really enlightening, and I think a lot of the work that y'all are doing is incredibly impactful. So I want to turn now, Chris, first, great name. But I want to first turn to say thank you again for TAC's partnership with WVU. We had the fortunate chance to visit your facility outside Fort Meade a couple months ago, and I know a lot of the amazing work that you all are doing building OT boot camps, and we're really excited to try to integrate those into our online programs and try to build upon a lot of the amazing work that you've done. So could you elaborate a little bit more about what TAC does and some of the amazing educational and research innovations that you all are pioneering?
Yeah, definitely. So, Chris, great name. Thanks for the opportunity here today. And I think this is no surprise from when we talked before. Super delighted to be here today, but I'm a Clemson grad, so I have a lot of deep-seated hate for West Virginia University for a bowl game, Orange Bowl game, destroying.
It was close, 70 to 33. It's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Close game.
So that was the most important thing I had to say today. I still hate you all. The second most important thing today, I fortunate to have landed at the Technology Advancement Center where, I hit a transition leaving the military and just, looking for a place that I could continue to contribute to the mission. And I really found a home there. And you're right, I think for the folks that walk through the door, you see there's just something a little bit different there. And I think it's, part of our culture statement is, it's Technology Advancement Center. It's more than just the technology, because we absolutely have a passion for what we do. So we have a fortunate vantage point that we are kind of a rock's throw distance from Fort Meade, where you've got U.S. Cyber Command, National Security Agency, DoD Cyber Defense Command, which gives us, I think, unique insights to understand really the scale of the problem. And we want to be part of the solution in a way that is, that fits our unique value proposition. So TAC's mission, we're a nonprofit. We say what our mission is to enable enduring advantage for the nation in defending critical infrastructure. But we really, if you distill that down to what we do, it's our three verbs that we say. We train the workforce, we accelerate innovation, and then we connect the ecosystem. So I'll just kind of briefly go over, those three lines of effort. Really easy to remember, TAC. So really easy to walk away with what we do, our three verbs. So we acknowledge that, if we want to, get ahead of our adversaries, you've got to train the workforce. In the D.C. metro area, I think is a delta of 45,000 or so trained workforce, and then open cybersecurity roles. That's consistent, I think, that we see across the nation. So we want to be part of the solution in training the workforce. That starts early. That starts, early outreach, K through 12, STEM and academic outreach, but then also on the professional side. So we want to be part of the solution in spotting, assessing, recruiting talent, and then shepherding them into those critical job roles. So that's thing number one. Our verb number two, accelerate innovation. If we want to get out ahead of our adversaries, we have to be much quicker in how we innovate. We realize, and we've learned over time, that You've got to have a group of smart folks with a novel idea. You got to give them space, and you got to give them resources so that they can accelerate innovation. So we want to be in that place from ideation all the way through to prototyping and testing to help throw some nitrous on how we innovate. The last verb, and probably the most important one, is connect. We want to connect the ecosystem. The wicked problems that we face really require the totality of the ecosystem, whether you're academics, industry, government, investment. You've got to bring all of that together. Now, connect, I think when a lot of people hear that word, you think of like exchanging emails and stuff. That's garbage. What we're really talking about is we want to be the Large Hadron Collider that slams everybody together to see what opportunities pop out so that we can drive some novel solutions. So TAC, we train, we accelerate, we connect.
Outstanding. Thanks, Chris. So, and excuse me, I have my notes on my phone. My wife said that'd be very tacky, but I said I'm going to stay true to my millennial roots here. So I'm trying my best. So, but she's probably right. But anyway, Chuck, I'd like to turn to you. Chuck, you work with Dragos, and Dragos is one of the top companies when it comes to OT threat detection, incident response, and helping secure our critical infrastructure. You guys have the absolute best motto I've ever heard, safeguarding civilization. So can you talk a little bit more about what Dragos does and how they're helping secure our nation's critical infrastructure?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I do, though, from a show of hands, how many people have done something today like flipping on a light switch, drinking water or coffee, or eating food? So what's special about this panel and our kind of focus area on critical infrastructure is this is a field and a space that unites every single person across the globe. That's why it's so important. That's also why we have such a tremendous opportunity ahead of us, because I think all of us would agree that being able to read a story to our kids at bedtime is an important thing. Being able to eat food, drink water every day is an important thing. So when we talk about focus and we talk about passion for the mission, that's why, right? We're talking about people, we're talking about our families, we're talking about our communities. So Dragos, like you said, our motto is safeguarding civilization. So what are some of the things that we're doing around that area? You mentioned threat detection, threat intelligence. Sure, that's all great and grand and fun. But I want to thank our colleague from Palo Alto for teeing this up, Littleton, right? So Littleton is one of the best examples to date that we have of government and industry collaboration against a nation-state threat actor. Dragos was privileged to be part of that effort at the invitation of the utility. We got involved with Littleton through a grant program from the American Public Power Association, which DOE administers and funds. And as part of that effort, we actually saw the power of bringing commercial intelligence, commercial hunters, some of the best incident responders of the world to bear alongside government, alongside CISA and the FBI and others, to kick the assholes targeting that utility out, right? And not just kick them out, but also pin down what they were doing so that we could share that with the broader community, and so that the government could share and get even deeper insights into these guys' activities and behaviors. And that capability to, at the request of a mission partner, to bring all those folks to bear and generate things that still are producing wins against the PRC and other nation-state adversaries is such a tremendous privilege, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to stand up and say, hey, we're pissing off the Chinese and the Russians and the Iranians every day, right? I love it. It's my favorite part of this job. Dragos is unique in kind of how we do business. The thing that makes us unique is not the technology. It's not our mission partners, which are phenomenal. It's really our people, right? And it's the fact that we're putting people that understand operational technology, critical infrastructure systems, and intelligence, and cyber, and incident response. And we're wrapping all of that and bringing in every single engagement and interaction that we have with adversaries and pushing it into Drago's platform, into our cyber threat intelligence offerings, and then also ensuring that that information is part of our consultants practice, our services business. We've had a lot of opportunities over years to do things. I mean, Dragos as a company really started when Rob, our CEO, was in the back of his wedding reception, reverse engineering the malware from Ukraine in 2016. And as we've watched adversaries continue to progress, as we've watched capabilities continue to mature to the point where, for the first time 2 years ago, when we did the analysis on a set of malware called Pipe Dream, we ran into a situation where we have a piece of malware that can impact almost every sector of the critical infrastructure space, right? There continues to be a compelling need to do better and get after the problem, right? And so helping people understand kind of what are the really important things that are impactful against an adversary, helping people understand how to do those really important things, and frustrate the adversary. And then building partnerships with academia, with our think tank community, and with so many others across government and policy space to help ensure that instead of resourcing things that are not going to buy down risk, resource the things that will matter and that will protect our communities. Like, that's a really special thing that Dragos gets to do because of those insights and the work that we do alongside so many great partners.
Well, that's great, Chuck, and again, appreciate that overview. I mean, I know I can say firsthand as a cyber researcher, all the yearly end reports that you all produce on OT threat intelligence, just kind of the landscape. I mean, that's just incredibly valuable. So thank you for everything that you do, and I want to thank all three of you for all the great work that you're doing to enhance our cybersecurity space. So I also have the very rare privilege of being also a moderator and a presenter. So if we can turn everybody's attention to the screen real quick. One of the exciting things that we're doing here at WVU and also as a state is we have launched a new Cyber Resilience Resource Center. And this is the first of its kind statewide entity where we are taking our best and brightest cybersecurity talent, both students and faculty, across all of our 2-year and 4-year institutions in the state to help tackle our state's cybersecurity challenges. Now, whether that's small businesses, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's our state's critical infrastructure, from rural water operators all the way up to our major power grid providers, we are actually putting our cybersecurity students on real-world projects so they can go out and make a difference, and they can hopefully learn a little bit along the way. So really our mission is to place West Virginia in the lead in cybersecurity. We are a first-of-a-kind center. There is no other center in the nation like us where we are taking a collaborative approach with all of our fellow 2-year and 4-year institutions to provide students from any school and any discipline with the opportunity to gain some hands-on cybersecurity or technology experience. What we're also doing is we're building sector-specific trainings. So the needs of a hospital for securing their systems are going to be entirely different than the needs of a rural water operator. So we want to go and build sector-specific trainings that create impact and lead to real actionable change for either critical infrastructure or entire municipalities. And what we're really doing with this is we're saying that West Virginia can lead the nation, both in cybersecurity education and in impact. So we offer a variety of services from cyber risk assessments to incident response planning, security awareness training, all the way to helping companies when their Wi-Fi router goes out. And this time restarting it didn't do the trick. So, if you have any students or any students that would be interested in this program, we can pay students up to $5,000 thanks to a generous grant from the Appalachian Regional Commission that myself and Dr. Liz Vitullo were luckily awarded. And we can offer students a semester-long fellowship where they can earn approximately $23 an hour. It's a little more than what I made working at Subway when I was an undergrad, but really the value of this is the experience, right? And I think everybody on the stage would agree, to get into cybersecurity, the degrees are great, the credentials are great, but it's really the experience that is that game changer, and that's going to help them get employment and enter the workforce. So we've had about, I think, 30 student fellows so far. We've had students from WVU, from engineering, from arts and sciences and business. We've had a number of Marshall students engaged. And we really think that this center can serve as a national model, not only for cybersecurity education, but also solving some of those kind of tactical level problems that critical infrastructure operators in every single state across this nation face every day. So we have a wonderful website. Feel free to visit it, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to let me know. Thank you so much. Okay, so back to the important people on the stage. Now I just want to talk a little bit about each of your backgrounds. So, Cory, you've had kind of quite the life trying to solve a lot of our issues in cybersecurity even before you joined ICIT. So can you talk a little bit about your time on the Cyberspace Solarium Commission and how that work is continuing today?
Sure. And I'm gonna do you a favor, Chris. So I'm cognizant of time here, so I'm gonna try to be quick with this because I know we got a lot of ground to cover. So at the highest level, the Cyberspace Solarium rendered a report. It was a congressional commission. It consisted of 2 senators, 2 congressmen, 2 from each party, so bicameral, bipartisan. It had the director of the FBI and the deputies of Homeland Intel Defense and 6 nationally recognized experts nominated by bipartisan leadership in the Congress. It is today seen as the most successful commission in American history, just by numbers, time spent, things like that. What was the mission? We had a year to develop a cyber strategy for the United States to better defend itself in cyber. We developed 82 recommendations as the policy recommendations to implement a strategy. That strategy ultimately became the first official cyber strategy of the United States of America in 2023. And 80-something recommendations have become law. We also reorganized cyber within the executive branch of the US government. So that essentially putting an executive leader on top of that, the Office of the National Cyber Director. If anybody ever wants to talk to me about the Solarium, happy to do that. I will say how the work continues today is a little bit how I arrived there. It's the people. Mark Montgomery, who is the executive director, has been a dog with a bone. He has latched on to how important this is. He came into cyber from commanding a fleet in the Pacific. He was a retired rear admiral. And he saw these problems and just was like, we have to fix this. Mark has driven it. Val Cofield, who is one of the other senior leaders on it, is now the executive director of ICIT. My deputy is leading Carnegie Mellon in their energy and critical infrastructure initiatives. The people that made the Solarium drove it on. And how I arrived there, I worked with General Nakasone, Tim Hawk, in a task force that was the first offensive task force that the U.S. military acknowledged post-2013, which is, when the Snowden leaks occurred. We didn't do anything until essentially ISIS. I went into that task force as the attorney, largely because I had a background in pushing packets through the National Security Council. Because it was the first time we were doing this, everything we were doing was going to require presidential approval. So I did that, and I had the good fortune of Joe Hartman, who is currently the deputy, was our operations officer. Tim Hawk was our deputy commander. and then the commander was Paul Nakasone. I then converted from a lawyer into an operations officer and ran current operations in the task force for about 1.5 years out of the NSA, right around the corner from where Rob Lee was working on the China mission for the Air Force. So I will say, you know, the commission's work continues through its people. And I will say, too, no matter how broad cyber is and how many lives it touches, which is everyone, oftentimes the community of those that are kind of doing this work is pretty small. So be good humans. So.
It's great. So, you know, now I'd like to turn to Chris, still a great name. You know, can you tell us a little bit more about your time in, what you can tell us at least, about your time in U.S. Cyber Command and in Special Forces and the NSA, and some of the lessons learned that you have found through kind of your time in that space defending our critical infrastructure?
Yeah, definitely. My career has been just dumb luck and timing. Just ended up in some awesome places, cool mission, working for some awesome leaders. I think the question really about what I've seen, the thoughts that I'd prepared for this, it's probably no surprise to everyone. These aren't like off-the-cuff ad hoc questions. We've known these questions for a little bit. So I was kind of preparing to talk about like the sophistication that we've seen. General Nakasone, that I was his senior strategy advisor for a while, used to talk about the 3 S's: scope, scale, and sophistication, that we've seen change, exponentially over the years. And that is a great question. I've kind of watched as it's, from an adversary perspective, that has evolved in a very concerning way with the complexity. As we look at critical infrastructure, deep OT experience, bespoke malware, multi-stage attacks. I mean, so we've seen that complexity increase. But I think the actual right question to ask is, and I was kind of thinking about it in the Intel brief earlier today, is what I guess I would coined as the 4th S, the simplicity. The barrier of entry for conducting catastrophic cyber attacks, I think, is lowered quite a bit. So I'm very much concerned about the complexity and the sophistication of nation-state actors, but I find myself more and more concerned about all of the noise that exists with the simplicity of attacks that can happen, that kind of drowns out or hides, obfuscates what nation-states are doing. I didn't really have an example for this. So we're looking at water security right now at TAC. Oldmar, Florida, I think it was sometime in 2021, where a hacker got in, not nation-state aligned, but tweaked the parts per million for the sodium hydroxide. Don't quote me on that. I'm just riffing now. But tweaked it by like 1,000%. So it was enough that an employee saw it and turned it off. But if they would have been a little more nuanced on how they went after it, it could have been a lot more catastrophic. So when I hear stuff like that, I just become more and more concerned about the simplicity with which catastrophic attacks can happen, and therefore more of the partnerships like bringing together government, industry, academia to work on those problems. I think it's necessary now, because the scale at which we deal with it, there's a lot more work than just one organization can do.
We agree. One thing I'd also say, what we see too with a lot of these attacks is that there's always someone that noticed something just in time. So it's good to also have still those humans in the loop, right? I think it's really important that operators are trained to recognize things when they're going wrong. So Chuck, I also want to kind of turn back to you and get your perspective as well. I mean, you've served in U.S. Army, you've been an executive in the private sector for many years. What should we be worried about right now in critical infrastructure?
I'll kind of point back to the simplicity piece. Our adversaries are not having to do crazy complex things because we have control systems that people have made accessible to the open internet. If you are an asset owner and operator and you have systems that are accessible from the internet, web portals, things of that nature, please take those offline. Please put them behind something else. Make the adversary work for their living. That's table stakes, right? And I appreciate your comment just now about people. I think it's also important to remember that cyber is not a machine versus machine game. It's a person versus person. There's a living human being on the other side of that malware capability. Even if it's AI enabled, AI produced, like there's a person there, right? And remembering that perspective of cyber is something that sometimes gets lost in the noise because we're looking at bits and bytes and computer screens, right? One of the most interesting and I think impactful things that I'm getting to work on right now is a program that Dragos has called the Community Defense Program. And when I think about all the different cybery things I've gotten a chance to have my finger in, this is the one that honestly I think is most special to me, because what we're doing is if you're a utility partner that is $100 million in revenue a year or below, you get free Dragos software. You pay nothing. You also get our Overwatch Threat Hunt as a service capability that actually is going to look through that data and kind of help keep you informed about what's going on. And the ability to do that for underserved critical infrastructure sectors, especially water, wastewater, right? Municipality-owned, co-ops, folks of that nature, is tremendous. Because one of the core problems that we're going to face soon, that we are already facing today, is an asset owner's ability to determine, was it cyber or was it not cyber? The reason that's so important from a operator level, it should shape how you actually restore systems. When we talk about resiliency in terms of, after a catastrophic cyber event, what we're really going to be driving to is how do we get things back working? And if you're replacing equipment because it's not working and then 10 minutes later it's broken again, that's a problem because you only have so much supply chain, spare parts, things of that nature, especially if you're somewhere, say, in the Pacific on an island, right? Guam's a great example of that. So the work that we're doing there, which is really focused on communities, I think it's super important. And the things that we're exploring now are actually how do we take those folks that are participating in those programs and enable state-level folks like state fusion centers, cyber coordination cells, things like that, to make use of that data and actually take ownership of cyber visibility across their critical infrastructure in their state or territory. I think what we've seen as part of the government shutdown is when folks, went to look at the data that's coming from federally managed programs and those websites were dark, is that the role of the states and territories is, as we've seen in, administration policy, executive orders, is really being emphasized and increased, and there's a critical need to make sure that leaders at the state and territory level can have the data to make the decisions that they need to make. And then the last important thing that we're doing as part of that, and that visibility just in general enables, right? If you know it's cyber and you're at the national level, that helps shape what the response should look like. If you don't know that the reason your power just went out was not cyber, or cyber, if you don't have a declarative answer on that, you can't make, as a country, an equitable and proportionate response to those activities. So visibility is foundational to enable, the folks doing the work every day, keep their stuff working and restore it after an incident. And it's important to the state, local government level to help shape resources response. It's important to the national level. And being able to be involved in that and help actually do, right? Like, we're not studying the problem, we're getting after the problem. We've got 50 plus participants already that are taking advantage of that program, is really special.
And thanks, Chuck. And I think what you all are doing is truly a wonderful service. It's really for the public good. So, I really commend Dragos and all the work that you're doing there for that. So, I think we've hit our time. I could talk about this stuff all day, folks, but, we have a lot of other great panels lined up. So just want to say thank you to our panelists for joining us today, and thank you all so much for listening.